for today's session. This is a session, one of a series of 4 sessions organized by Feed the Future Developing Local Extension Capacity Project in collaboration with the African Forum for Agricultural Advisory Services and the Kenyan Forum for Agricultural Advisory Services. And we start at 3 o'clock. Our meeting is meant to be for 2 hours. So we welcome you and hope that you'll be able to participate fully in this particular event. So, okay, sorry, I'm sharing the wrong screen. I hope you can see my screen. Is it visible?
Yes.
It is visible.
Yes, it's visible, but you can put full screen.
Okay, give me a moment. Slideshow. Okay, sorry for that. Okay. So as I mentioned, this is the fourth session of a series of 4 sessions that have been organized in collaboration by DLEC, AFAS, and KEFAS. And the overall objective of these sessions was to look at engaging youth and private sector in extension and agricultural advisory services. We have had 3 other sessions prior to this one. And the first session focused on the role of the private sector and youth in propelling digital disruption in invigorating extension and advisory services. The second one was on effective private sector engagement in extension and advisory services. The third one was on gainful youth participation in extension advisory services. And today we shall be looking at or discussing the double benefits for youth and private sector participation in scaling up successful extension approaches, of opportunities and challenges. The session objectives here are to share experiences on youth and private sector engagement in extension advisory services, to draw lessons to stimulate successful extension and advisory services through increased effective youth and private sector engagement, and to make policy recommendations to inform policy agenda to support enhanced successful youth and private sector engagement in extension services. Our webinar is scheduled for 2 hours, starting from 3 o'clock East African time. We shall have 15 minutes or so of welcoming remarks or preliminaries. Thereafter, we shall have three presentations, each running about 20 minutes or so. And thereafter, we shall have Q&A from the presentations. And thereafter, we shall have discussions by the same presenters in a plenary discussion. And then we shall have another session to engage with the audience before we finally close and end our webinar. My name is George Nyamu, and I will be a moderator for the meeting today. Thank you. So I want to take this opportunity to invite Peter Mwangi, who is a country focal person for KEFAS, to make some welcoming remarks, and thereafter usher in the other collaborators, DLEC and AFAS, to make comments also before we get into the presentations for the day. Thank you. Peter, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, George Nyamo. My name is Peter Mwangi. I'm the country focal person for KEFAS, that is the Forum for Agricultural Advisory Services Kenya. And today I am lucky that we have the chairman, he was available. So I would like to take this opportunity to invite our chairman, Professor George Cheminingwa, to take 2 minutes to really welcome us on behalf of this team, and then we will be able to invite AFAS. So George.
Thank you very much, Peter. Good afternoon, everybody. As already indicated, my name is George Cheminingwa, the chairman of the board of KEFAS. I am happy that we have had a series of 4 webinars already, today being the last one, and they have been very exciting webinars. Today, the focus has been, of course, on youth and private actors' engagement in extension and advisory services. And this is very important, particularly the youth. Africa is a youthful continent, so it is very important topic for us. And extension is very critical for agricultural development. And we know that we are having challenges in extension provision in Kenya and other African countries. So this particular webinar is very critical for that, because most of the challenges are also policy related. I'm happy that we are going to discuss about innovative approaches for extension, including, of course, the SHAPE and farmer field schools. The SHAPE approach is very important because it converts a farmer into an entrepreneur, for a farmer to grow to sell rather than grow and sell. The farmer field schools, which is about experiential learning, to build farmers' expertise. So you have a very good combination there. We have, of course, challenges in scaling up and institutionalization of these innovative approaches, and particularly challenges in terms of ensuring ownership, particularly by policymakers, and also integration in policy frameworks, as well as also the challenge of an enabling environment for agricultural production, particularly when it comes to infrastructure. So this is very important for the youth and very important for extension. And I hope that we shall have very fruitful discussions after the presentations. And so I thank the presenters, I thank AFAS, DLEC, and all the participants that are going to engage in these discussions. With those very many remarks, I welcome all of us to join in and listen and enjoy the discussion. Let it be lively. And thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you. Actually, we look forward to a very good discussion out of this. And then I would like now to invite Max from AFAS, who is also part of the organizing team, also to guide us with AFAS opening remarks.
Thank you, Peter. And from AFAS side, we are delighted that we're part of this process with all these 4 webinars successful going on. The planning was very well structured. We thank also GIFRAS, the Global Forum for Rural Advisory Services, that gave us a lot of backstopping from the global point of view. DLEC team was very instrumental, IPRI. Today we are in the final webinar, of course, in this series. And in my perspective, this is the beginning of the next series of webinars, because we have got a lot of very important recommendations. Today's session focuses more on the youth, but also in terms of the issues of the approaches, doubling benefits from the approaches that are used. And indeed, extension continues to be very pivotal in the way we engage the youth, both as service providers, but also as benefactors. The approaches that we chose for now do not reflect that they are the only approaches that we have. We have a number of them, but it was critical that we use. We looked at farmer field school, like Professor, the chair of KEFAS has said, as an innovative approach, which is very critical in empowering the farmers, but also sharp in terms of linkages and making the farmers access the markets. And those are critical things that are happening in the farming community. So today's discussions again reflect to us that extension is becoming more pluralistic. It has a number of approaches ongoing in the continent, but what is important is how do we institutionalize this? How do we integrate them? The former field school, for example, has been transitioning from the purely pest management to now talking about business schools, junior schools that I know the colleague Ori will be alluding to. So again, just to appreciate other approaches which are being used, farmer to farmer extension, village-based advisors by AGRA, the village model in Uganda, for example. All these approaches are very critical, and we look forward to a time when we can be able to have a lot of integration, but also adaptation based on context. So, ladies and gentlemen, from AFAS, we welcome you to this webinar today, and we wish you very good discussions as we chat away in terms of strengthening extension and advisory services in the continent. Thank you very much, Peter and team.
Thank you very much, Max. Thank you very much. And now I want to hand over to Christine. You have 2 minutes for DLEC and the organizing team. So Christine, you are there?
Yes, hi, Peter.
Hi.
Thank you, Peter and KEFAS and AFAS. We really appreciate the chance as the Feed the Future Developing Local Extension Capacity DLEC project to partner with AFAS and KEFAS as well as GFROS because of their reach from the global level to the regional level, country level, and down to the farmer. So we'll be hearing today about scaling up. I think it's a very important topic within extension and advisory services. And so I'd like to welcome you all, Karibu Kenya, and I hope you all have plenty of time to ask questions and to discuss in the chat box as well as following the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So George, back to you.
Thank you, Peter and the team. As we commence the presentations for the day, I wish to invite the participants and encourage them to use the chat box to introduce themselves and their organizations, to link up and meet, and also to ask questions so that we can get the panelists responding to some of the questions as we proceed on with the presentations. We will also be inviting you to participate in 2 small polls to give us some feedback to enable us better our planning of such similar engagements in future. We shall have the first poll immediately before we commence the presentation, and the other one will come a bit later. They are pretty short, all of them taking a couple of seconds only, and we really hope that you will be able to take time to give us your feedback on those presentations. So I don't know, are the questions ready for the first poll?
Yes, they're already in the screen.
They're already on screen. Okay, go ahead. Okay. Thank you very much. I think we can now proceed on to the presentation. So I want to take this opportunity to invite our first presenter today. And our first presentation is coming from Francisca. So from Francisca Malenge. Francisca is a Deputy Director of Agriculture in Kenya, and she's also the project coordinator for the SHAPE program project. We shall hear more about that and the SHAPE approach in her presentation. And she has vast experience in extension services in Kenya, running over 30 years. And she's also a trainer for SHAPE approach for other countries in Africa. Her presentation will be on SHAPE approach impact on youth and private sector involvement. And I now welcome Francisca to take the floor and walk us through her presentation. We have 20 minutes. Francisca comments now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me. Yeah.
Francisca, you can proceed.
Very much for inviting me webinar. So as you have heard, I've been coordinating Shape Approach project for the last 13 years, first in the counties and now in the headquarters. So this is the outline of my presentation. So the Shape Approach, as you might be knowing, was formulated in Kenya in 2006 during the implementation of the project supported by JECA. And Dr. Aikawa, who is one of our panelists, was the team lead at that time. At that time, I was at the county level. And I'm happy to say it has been successful in improving farmers' livelihoods, not only in Kenya, but also in beyond. And in the project, the youth constitutes about 20% of the beneficiaries, although we know in Kenya the youth are 13 million people, which constitutes around 29% of the population. So we still have a long way to go. We have maybe more than 10% to catch up. And in the Shape Approach, the private sector has played a key role in the successful application. And I just wanted to show here what we call the Shape Approach. And we normally start with sensitization workshops where we set standards, what we are going to, the farmers are getting into, and we motivate them. Then we do the best and survey. And the third and very important activity is focus stakeholder forum, where we actually show farmers how to link with stakeholders. We might not link with the private sector, all of them at that particular time, but here we give them the fishing line to go and fish for more stakeholder forum. And then the other activities are gender mainstreaming, GOTs, then training farmers on gender mainstreaming. Then the heartbeat of the Shape Approach, that is training farmers on how to do market survey and how to select crops which they can manage. Then the farmers go ahead, select the crops. They do market survey and select the crops. And then that is when now again we come in, where we now do a crop production TOTs for extension staff, depending on what the farmers have selected. And then thereafter, the staff will now do the farmer training. And thereafter, we do monitoring and evaluation. And we are now looking at making farmers market oriented, whether they are small scale farmers or not. So briefly, that is now the Shape Approach. But this is now the second core part of the Shape Approach, but it's the social part of the Shape Approach, where we make the farmers feel better about themselves and motivate them to do things for themselves. I hope Dr. Hikawa will touch on that. And our youth group, they have been very successful. They have selected crops right from the local indigenous vegetables all the way for exports. And we're happy to note that they have been able to select, to meet the standards for the exports. And here I'm showing youth who basically did not have land. The lady on the left, she really made me feel excited because at first she didn't have land. The first 2 seasons she lived with the land, and later on she was able to buy the same land, which was going for more than $1,000, and now she's able to own land. Then with they also the same youth group got linked to buyers, and they are able to sell not only their produce, but they are also able to sell their neighbors' produce. So the youth group like this one, they have become marketers themselves. Then we have another team, the couple in the middle. They come from a very, very dry area, but they have been able to select very suitable crops. And through also private sector, they were able to be given farms on loans, and they were able to grow those crops. Then the other team is that they were able to link to the private sector, and the private sector also saw business where they build them a greenhouse, and the farmers, they are able to grow vegetable seedlings for sale. At the same time, they also linked to other exporters. So they have tomatoes and avocados as their preferred crops. On the shared impact, we have seen the youth have improved food security and livelihood support. There has also been a lot of job creation, both on farm and off farm. Of course, being youth, they started very small land, but with the time they are able to expand and they're able to employ others. Then off farm, as much as possible, they start other types of businesses. We have also seen increased financial literacy leading to community resource mobilization. As we know, the youth normally do not have a lot of resources, but we have encouraged them to save. We linked them to private sector, the bank, and they were able to be given financial literacy, and therefore they formed cooperative farm or community-based organization. So some are able to lend others money. And then we have also seen a lot of increased asset acquisition among the youth, especially land and other commodities. And then increased literacy levels among the youth. Some youth had dropped in schools at various stages from primary, and we encourage them to go back to school because it's not good to have an illiterate millionaire, and they have been able to resume their studies all the way from basic to tertiary. So we have staff for youth who are in colleges, others in primary, others in secondary. We have also seen reverse rural-urban migration of the youth, especially near the cities like Kisumu, Nairobi, where because of youth seeing their counterparts making money from agriculture, they have left the town and come back. And because of the involvement of the private sector, where now the farmers are able to be given either loans or given marketing opportunities, there is improved productivity generally. And of course, the private sector, they have also realized it's also good business, so everybody is happy. And then for gender relationships, it is easier to teach a young couple about gender mainstreaming than old people. So we have also seen a lot of improvement, especially among the young people. One time I had an experience where the farmer, his wife, they came with a man came with his wife. Then the wife went to the kitchen where we were cooking for them. And the husband came and told me, no, I came with my wife to listen, not to go and cook. And I actually ended up tending the food myself. So we have seen they are taking that one seriously. And as I've said at the beginning, we have seen a lot of impact. This couple with inside the shop, they have been able within 2 years to put up a house, to buy land, put up a good house, and at the same time open a mobile transfer, money transfer shop. And it's because they have been supported by the private sector who market their produce. So, and they're able to train other, not only youth groups, but also mature farmers. We have a farmer here who has also been able to buy a motorcycle, and he has improved the transportation in his area. I think you might have seen this photo where at the beginning where he was standing in a plot of French beans. So as the youth gained experience, they were gracious enough, some, to train others and link them to the private sector. So they have actually become leaders in their own right. We have a chairman here of a youth group who has opened a WhatsApp group, and it involves farmers in his group, farmers from other counties, and staff from also other counties. He met them in a training which the 3 or 4 counties, and was able to take advantage. And through this WhatsApp group, we have been able to exchange a lot of information. I talked about youth migrating from urban to rural, and there's one farmer here. There are around 10 of them who migrated from town back to the rural, courtesy of just one youth group, and is able to store some of the information like crop production calendar and also other production notes in his mobile phone. And I think this type of training, youth training others, has really helped us and the SHAPE approach in general. What are the opportunities which we have if we have the youth in agriculture? Of course, youth are very curious, so they are likely to adopt innovative agricultural technologies like use of drones and any other technology which an old person might be unable to or not willing to adopt. Then we have also use of ICT in information transfer, marketing, and financial management. Since farmers, the young farmers can understand the ICT, we are seeing this one will help us in information transfer. They're also likely to adopt the climate smart agriculture. And then we have seen them also offering agricultural support services, especially mechanizing what we are using. So like they can use motorized sprayers or weeders or any mechanization which might be required. In Kenya, for example, we have not really involved so much. The old people are not so much involved in agro-processing and value addition. So we are seeing there's an opportunity here for the youth to engage in this. And then most important, the successful youth can act as role models and reverse the rural-urban migration. And this will lead to decreasing the urban poor, which is a challenge. and ultimately this will reduce the urban crime. And then there's land is available for the youth to hire. So although we always say there's this factor of production is not available to most youth, but with encouragement, we have found that it is possible. They can hire land, lease it for some time. If they want to buy theirs, they can get the money from that farming. So there's that opportunity. And then there's highly educated youth willing to engage in agriculture. In fact, today I had 2 phone calls from 2 youth who really want to do farming. So even the ministry has a project which is focusing on the very educated youth. So we see this opportunity. They can carry the SHAPE approach or any other approach to engage in agriculture. We have challenges. This is always going to be there, but it can be reduced. Competing livelihoods, especially in the transport sector or any other full job there. Some of the youth, although we train them, they understand. Sometimes once they make money, they'll buy a motorcycle, a vehicle, or maybe open a shop. Some told us they were going to buy a helicopter. That means a vehicle to start transport business. But you could see this is it's not going to go very well. And then in some areas, we don't have successful youth role models in agriculture. So this can be a challenge because it's so difficult to say, if you do this, you are going to succeed. But this can also be sorted out with the time. And then we have the non-incorporation of the SHAPE approach in extension policy documents. It has been a challenge. However, in the reduction of devolved governments, we are seeing now this is being done. And in the next 5 years, we are trying to make this more of a reality. Then we have a challenge of disappearing institutional memory of the attrition of our staff. Because we have lost a lot of staff who knew about the SHAPE approach, and we have not had the very young ones. So also from this staff, extension staff, there's also been a challenge. But yeah, I understand we are going to employ around 40 more, and we can teach them. And also the counties are employing. So
Francisca?
youth.
Francisca, I hope you are winding up.
Yes.
Okay.
2 more minutes. Yeah. Then we have the presence of competing extension approach. 1 minute.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I mean, staff do not take, they should actually take all the extension approaches and carry it together. Then we have dependence on stakeholder agents. Some stakeholders are very good, but once they are transferred, we don't have any person to carry our messages. And then the lack of self-propelling stakeholder forum. And I wanted to leave you with these 2 pictures. One is a young man who has been able to put up at least some commercial houses where he gets like $400 a month. And then the other photo is farmers graduating, courtesy of a stakeholder. And also this makes farmers feel very good about themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Francisca. I kindly request you to pull down your slideshow so that we can proceed. Thank you very much. So we shall move to the next presenter immediately. And our next presenter is Jiro. Jiro will also do a little bit more on SHAPE, the SHAPE approach. And Jiro is a senior advisor in JICA, a senior advisor in cultural and rural development in JICA. And he has a wealth of experience in extension work in Africa. And he has been the head of a team of SHAPE project in Kenya and has served the same capacity in South Africa and as an advisor. He'll be sharing his experience on the SHAPE approach and the scale-up initiatives and opportunities for youth and the private sector in this particular approach. Jiro, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. I am now trying to show my presentation. Just a moment, please. Is that okay for you? You see now my presentation slide?
Yes, we can.
Okay, okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your introduction. Again, my name is Jiro Aikawa. I'm a senior advisor of JICA, Japanese International Cooperation Agency. Now I'm based in Tokyo, Japan. Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to me. This is my very much pleasure. Yeah, and my presentation is just to complement or supplement the presentation done by Francisca Marenge. That we worked together for a long time, and she mentioned about the detail of the activity done by youth and some linkage with the private sector. But my presentation is focusing on some general information about the SHAPE approach. So that you will have some image how to utilize SHAPE in your program for supporting youth and the linkage of the private sector, because the JICA is willing to work together with you, and the SHAPE is expected to be utilized by your program. This is SHAPE is the one with a complementary approach, not isolated program. Yeah. So okay. I think that some of you have already understood what SHAPE is, but I'd like to repeat to say, okay, SHAPE stands for the Smallholder Horticulture Empowerment and Promotion Approach. And this approach was developed in Kenya through JICA's Technical Cooperation Project. And it was started from 2006 and succeeded in increased farmers' income. As Madam Marenge said, at that time, I was a team leader. I stayed in Kenya and worked together with a Kenyan counterpart, including Madam Marenge. Madam Marenge was a very, very important counterpart at the county level. And this is this approach is just an extension approach. There are many extension approaches, as Max said, but the uniqueness of SHAPE approach is to realize market-oriented agriculture. But how? Yeah. As Madam Marenge showed you some activity of SHAPE package. Yeah, on your right side, it's indicated some activities. And on your left side, this is some category. Yeah, and we divide it into the whole essential step. The one is selection of the target and sharing vision and goal with farmers, and so that the farmer can understand what they are going to do and what they have a role and responsibility. And the second one is the farmer's awareness of current situation and new information. Then the farmer conduct market survey and they understand the market needs. Then the third one is decision making by farmers, not by us or not by extension staff, by farmers themselves based on the information obtained through market survey. Then the whole step is finally the technical staff provide a technical solution. So a farmer want to learn because they were aware of the problem and they decide by themselves and they like to learn about how to solve their problem. Yeah. Then this is the concept of SHAPE approach, and we have two concepts. One is promoting farming as a business, which was the slogan of Ministry of Agriculture in Kenya. And the other one is the utilization of the motivation theory, especially self-determination theory. We'd like to see the more detail. Yeah, what is the how to realize the farming as a business is there is a very huge information gap between market stakeholders and producers, not only in Kenya, but also the other African countries. The market stakeholders understand the demand and price fluctuation and the required quality and the needs of the quantity. They understand, but they don't understand who are the potential farmers, where they are. But on the other hand, producers, they understand who they are and their potentiality and capacity. But on the other hand, they don't understand market needs. So there is very, very huge information gap. So we try to mitigate the information gap so that we try to make a trust situation between producers and market stakeholders. And this is a voice from both farmer and traders. If you see, you can understand not only farmers, but also traders. They are very willing to work together with the sheep farmers. For instance, she said that she doesn't need to travel a long distance searching for vegetables because the sheep farmer can provide very fresh vegetable to her. Yeah, so we can create a win-win situation. So, and this is the motivation part. And in self-determination theory, it was said we human beings, not only the farmers, but also that we human beings has three fundamental desires. One is autonomy, and the second one is competence, and the third one is relatedness. Okay, this slide shows the what are three fundamental desires. So maybe you can understand each of them. Okay, in shape, what support we provided. For instance, for autonomy support, farmers themselves decide the crop to grow and make a crop calendar based on the result of the market survey. Normally people don't want to be controlled by someone. Yeah, so we provide the opportunity for farmers to decide by themselves. And the competence support is skill and techniques provided to farmers are user-friendly and low cost. The farmer can practice it immediately after learning. So by tomorrow, tomorrow they can do it. Yeah. And related support is face-to-face communication between farmers and market stakeholders, not by phone, but the face-to-face communication is very important to support the relatedness feeling. Yeah, this is our activities. So we have many activities, and all activities are considered by these three fundamental desires. Then achievement so far, as I said, the SHAPE approach was born in Kenya, but nowadays 24 other African countries have been involved and benefited, and 120,000 farmers were benefited by this SHAPE approach. But nowadays, not only in African countries, but also the other continents like Palestine, Nepal, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Bangladesh, and Latin America, El Salvador, Chile, Argentina. Now they started to implement SHAPE approach. So I'd like to say you have to be very honored because SHAPE was born in Kenya, in Africa, and spread it out to other areas and supporting small-scale farmers. Yeah, and this is a joint declaration for achieving the better lives of the 1 million small-scale farmers through SHAPE approach by representative of the government, including the PS from Ministry of Agriculture, Professor Bogo attended, and private companies, 5 private companies I am going to explain to you later, and IFAT. President of IFAT, at that time, he remarked the opening speech of this event. Okay, from this slide, I'd like to focus on the relationship with the private sectors. On your left side, you can see the SHEP farmer can increase the income through SHEP approach. Yeah, the more detailed figures, maybe Madam Marenge can tell you later, but this is just to pick up some the counties. But the tendency is almost same in other areas. They can earn money. Then, after earning the money, many of them increase their cost. It means the farmers start to buy a new seed or fertilizer or like a pump or small irrigation like you can see on your right side. So it means, this is the increase of adoption rate of techniques. In Kenya, number of techniques adopted by target farmers increased up from 9.3 to 14.2 among 20 fundamental techniques. We asked farmers which one you did and which one you didn't. And they answered the baseline survey and the endline survey. They increased the number of the techniques which they introduced. And the techniques included proper application of input, the seed and fertilizer. And okay, we can see the many demonstration plot or sales promotion can be seen elsewhere. And is it enough for the convince farmers advantage of your product? This is my question. And I'd like to say, SHEP farmers need the private sector and become good customer. Yeah, as I said, the SHEP farmer can earn money, and they allocate their money for buying some goods sold by private sectors. So they can be a very, very good customers. So why don't you connect with our SHEP farmers? Or you can introduce or implement SHEP by yourself. Then you can educate farmers as SHEP farmers. Then maybe your business is expanding. So this is our thought. And actually, in Malawi, some private companies supported SHEP farmers. And after that, their sales become much better than before. And this is my last slide, the final slide. This gentleman, he is 25 years old. This is just a farmer in South Africa. And when I visited there, we interviewed all of them, and he mentioned about, finally, I can get married. Yeah, before SHEP, he cannot prepare anything. And he cannot convince the parents of candidate. But after SHEP, he can get the money, and finally, her parents allow them to get married. Yeah, so we have many stories which Francisco Marenge shared with you. The youth are very happy and returned from urban to rural. And during the ticket 6 and the side event of the SHEP approach, one the farmers from Kisumu, I think, he mentioned about, okay, agriculture is the most attractive business. Yeah. So we think, okay, jobless youth stay chamber or field or village and to earn money or to have family. This is our message. Okay. Thank you very much. Asante sana.
Thank you, Dr. Jiro. Kindly pull down your
Okay,
slideshow.
let me try. Okay, is that okay?
That's okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So we can move on to the next presenter. And the next presenter is Ori Pratt. Again, talking on a different approach in extension. Pratt is an agricultural officer with FAO in Addis Ababa, and his work focuses on agricultural extension and crop production initiatives, and his region of coverage are 9 East African countries. So he has vast experience in the different countries, and he has been the lead in institutionalization of the farmer field school methodology or approach. And among other things, he has also been involved in integrating fish production, partnerships, and agricultural advisory service organizations in extension services. So he'll be talking to us about farmer field schools institutionalization, what his experiences in institutionalization of farmer field schools. So I welcome Ori to take us through the next 15 minutes before we get into Q&A. Continue to send your questions to the chat box so that we can have a look at them later after Ori is through. Thank you. Ori, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you all can hear me well. If you'd like, I can turn on my video, but I'm getting, the host has blocked that, so I'll just continue with my presentation instead.
If you want, just go ahead. You can use your video if you want.
Oh, it says the host has blocked it, so I'll just continue as such, no worries. Okay, well, thank you very much for this invitation to present about institutionalizing the farmer field schools approach. And I hope you can all see that well.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So for those who...
Ori, is that full screen?
I can move.
It's a preview mode.
Oh, because I have 2 screens. Okay.
That's why, yeah.
Yeah. Give me 1 quick second here. I can disconnect this screen, and then that will go back. Okay. My apologies for that.
You can put your video on also, huh?
Okay. So for those who are not familiar with the farmer field schools approach, it started in the late 1980s by the Food and Agriculture Organization in Asia.
Ori, can you raise your voice?
And last year we celebrated 30 years. So we're 30 years young, we are alive and growing. And so some of the key concepts that we often talk about farmer field schools, the participants conduct informed decision-making. They undergo critical analyses of how their crops or their livestock enterprise is doing, experimentation, or as we often say, discovery-based learning. And we often adapt the approach to local context. So there's no one size fits all. The structure of the curriculum is set, but we often will always adapt to any sort of local context and any sort of challenges that the farmer field school participants face. We also lead our participants to empower themselves to make decisions, to come together as a community. They, of course, receive informal adult education, as well as youth education. I'll get into the junior farmer field and life schools. And it is a learning by doing approach. So as we see here, like I said, the farmer field school approach began in the late 1980s by FAO in Asia to assist farmers that were facing pests in rice production. So the curriculum was developed and the approach spread, and it has spread globally. And you can see there we have different topics that are covered. We see that it is grown into poultry, apiculture, agropastoralism. There are even, like it was mentioned earlier, there are integrated rice and fish production through farmer field schools. And so here we are in 2020, more than 30 years past the inception, and farmer field schools have been implemented in more than 90 countries. And we have even adapted to the conditions of the pandemic in order to support continuing farmer field school implementation in countries. So the design of farmer field schools was to take technology packages that are delivered by extension agents in the prior top-down fashion towards more partnerships with farmers to foster innovation, creativity, and flexibility, and concentrate on building the individual's capacity through their own demand-driven participatory approaches. So the goal in farmer field schools is for farmers to express their problems and be able to experiment, discover different options, different technology packages, working with fellow farmers in their communities to overcome these challenges, so that as well the facilitators and extensionists learn hand in hand through this process. So we see that some of the strengths of farmer field schools that over the past 30 years, it has certainly increased agricultural productivity and overall sustainability, and improved natural resource management. And I'm a firm believer in the farmer field school approach because it develops the human capacity as well, not only from the technical agriculture production level, but the individual capacity. So we see aspects of growing confidence, creativity, and critical analyses to overcome their challenges. But on a collective level, at the community level, we see higher engagement in farmer organizations, the ability to resolve conflicts in communities, and the communities are empowered themselves to come together as a collective voice to market their products and continue this experience-based learning approach. Now, we've also seen a strength as well in the incorporation of the junior farmer field and life schools. We've adapted the approach to be able to target vulnerable populations. So for those who don't know, junior farmer field and life schools utilize groups of youth to learn about agricultural production, meanwhile instilling entrepreneurial skills in the participants. And it grows their confidence, like I said, because they have to make decisions and have to get up in front of their group and defend their own decisions. So we're instilling a lot of these soft skills that are needed to enter the workforce that are often passed over in a normal school curricula. And not only does this apply to youth, but we've helped to improve gender equity and close gender gaps through farmer field schools. We've had a lot of female participants that have become very much empowered to make their own decisions for their farm households to become sustainably productive people in society. So we certainly instill a transformative discovery-based learning through these examples that I've shared. But this has not come without challenges. Some of the main challenges include insufficient, inconsistent training of facilitators, and this will lead into why we go into institutionalization. Secondly, the funding is certainly not sustainable. We know that we have relied on donor funding for support, and post donor support, there's been a question of the sustainability of farmer field schools. So this can be certainly a challenge, and we often lack organizational support and communication. But as we've come along the way, we've worked with other partners to enhance this support, and we've definitely taken steps in the right direction there. The scale up has not been to our desire, we would say. We often need to find the best pilot approaches and then how we can take them to donors. But then that goes back up to the problem that I was stating of unsustainable funding. Farmer field schools have also received criticism that they've been production focused. And we realize that this has been a challenge, and we're trying to answer this challenge by creating the farmer business schools, or incorporating more business topics into their learning cycle. And we see that we've had difficulty in monitoring and evaluation on the impact level of farmer field schools. So FAO has taken an initiative over the past few years to develop a monitoring, evaluation, and learning framework to measure the impacts of farmer field schools across a few different domains, whether that's the individual level domain, the community domain, the production focus, or even the financial domain. So from these challenges, we see a need, especially when it comes to the training of facilitators and master trainers, to institutionalize the approach. And this is something that I've been working on for the past 2 years in Eastern Africa. So the definition that we look at is to incorporate something into a structured and highly formalized system, or to establish something, a practice or an activity, as a convention or a norm in an organization or a culture. So this is what we're intending to do through the institutionalization process of the farmer field school approach in Eastern Africa. But of course, we look at this on a global level as well. We see 3 different areas of institutionalization, certainly a process. So the first one is appropriation. This is where communities take ownership of their own innovations and decisions as a group. So it's kind of a similar approach, but not necessarily embedded into all of the activities that the community does. The next is harmonization. This is where we find synergies, especially in regional economic communities, the CG centers, GFRAS. So we find these synergies, we share our lessons, and we share and exchange the different activities so that it can be mainstreamed into these counterpart bodies. And the last is institutionalization itself, where we look at local and national level actors to create a common understanding of farmer field schools with them. And we take it further to integrate it into agriculture policies and rural development programs. And this is where we see that the farmer field school programs and networks have the highest potential. So this is where we're looking at the higher level, the ministry or even the academia level. And we see a lot of opportunities. We can improve the skills of the trainers, as I was saying that this has been a challenge. So if we institutionalize and set a core curricula for how we train facilitators, this will improve the quality of farmer field school implementation later. It improves participatory approaches. We can strengthen institutional support and stakeholder interactions, especially as they become sensitized and more aware of the farmer field school approach. We can establish research and development methods for collaborative learning, especially with the CG centers or academia. And this creates a standardization of procedures, not only for monitoring and evaluation, but for the training of trainers themselves. So our challenges, we see that in institutionalization, often there can be a quantity versus quality approach. And for us in institutionalization, we focus on quality. We want to be able to know that the farmer field school participants, when they're learning about how to grow their maize or how to keep their chickens, that they get quality training from their facilitators, rather than having a large number of schools across the country, farmer field schools, but in a diluted quality of training. Another challenge is inconsistency in leadership. When we have a lot of rollover in governments among ministry officials or trainers or whoever is located at a district or local level and that changes, then this can often become a risk for the institutionalization process. And we often have institutional limits. As we see, we know that there's a lot of funding limitations, and the same can go in other institutions as well. And we have competing interests. We understand that we are not the only actor in this game, so we need to harmonize approaches rather than compete for achieving results. So the last bit I want to share is just how the different aspects we think about in institutionalization. So the first is in government, to increase the quality and effectiveness and mainstream this methodology to address current challenges at, like I said, the government level. We want to establish national policy frameworks to institutionalize farmer field schools so that we can support organized groups of farmers through enhanced networks and legal and budgetary support. The next is in academia, which is the area that I have focused in a project of training university lecturers and professors on the farmer field school approach so that the curricula can then be taught to the future ranks of extension agents in the field. So this begins to answer where does the youth come in? So we've been working on expanding and deepening these relationships. And we've seen that investing in farmer field schools in university curricula creates better trained future agriculture extension agents for the future, for the field. So they take this curricula and they're well versed on the farmer field school approach so that when they enter the field, they're able to facilitate learning sessions among organized groups of farmers. It improves community bonds. We understand that a pillar of academia is community outreach. So when the university professors go out and work with the local communities, it enhances those relationships and partnerships for the future. And it gets them out of the classroom and gives the professors and the students real world experience. And this creates as well a nexus between teaching and research for farmer field schools. If we know that there's a lack of monitoring and evaluation, this sets up a prime opportunity for students to gather data and publish results on the effectiveness or the impacts of farmer field schools. And finally, at the NGO level, this helps create long-term community relationships, the same as it does for academia and as well for the government. So this process, we see a lot of promise, and we certainly hope to take it forward. And there's great potential for the benefits for the youth, not only by attending, the vulnerable youth, to target the vulnerable youth through the junior farmer field and life schools, but also in academia, that we can work with the future extension agents or those who are simply interested in the methodology to become well-versed so that they can become community facilitators in the future. So with that, I think my time is about to expire. So I'd like to thank you all for this invitation and back to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now we have a Q&A session. And as I had indicated earlier, we encouraged questions to be posted to the Q&A of the chat box. I can see quite a number of questions, and I can see some panelists have responded to some questions. But now we have an opportunity for asking questions directly to the panelists. You can raise up your hand. And maybe before we do that, I see an interesting question here from Takele Shome asking, I think it was in reference to the first presentation, how do we consider the diverse needs of different farming communities in extension planning? Maybe as we encourage the participants to think through their questions and raise up their hands, we could get somebody from the ministry to respond to this, either Francisca herself or Amariet. I think you're also with us. One of you can respond to that. Meanwhile, kindly raise up your hand and then we give you an opportunity to ask your questions directly to any of the panelists or to make some comments. Francisca or Amariet?
Yeah, thank you. The question is, how do we make...
How do you take into consideration the diversity in farming communities to meet their needs in extension planning?
Okay. In the SHAPE approach, we normally give the farmers to select whatever enterprise they are capable of producing successfully. That's why we don't have a particular value chain we are promoting, because some might be too poor, resource poor, and they can only afford to invest very little. So, and then when it comes now to the real extension work, we like the staff agreeing with the farmers on when, for how long they want to be trained. If the farmers can only afford 2 hours on a Saturday, sometimes where they go to church on Saturday, sometimes they like on Sunday. So we try to be as much flexible just to meet the farmers' needs. I don't know whether I've answered.
Thank you. I can see Mary Kamau, your hand is up. Mary? Mary?
Yes. Oh, good. Okay, thank you very much. I'm happy to be associated with this SHEP, an approach that we started in Kenya, and we have heard how it has grown in most parts of the world. And this very important approach, actually, the success could have been because of the market-oriented extension approach. Because we have always said that if you have nowhere to sell the produce, farmers will never take an approach, because once they grow the crop and try to sell and they don't have a market, it becomes a challenge. And I think the success of this approach was because the farmers were growing to sell, having gotten the survey in the market and selling. In FFS, we have heard that the approach is mainly focused on production. And I was thinking that some of these approaches we can be able to harmonize, like Pratt has said, we harmonize so that we can be able to even get the maximum out of it. So I'm thinking that if we can be able to hybridize our 2 approaches, maybe FFS and SHEP, we can be able even to reach much more goals. And I feel that even for the youth, with the SHEP approach, we were able actually to do a model where the youth could learn from others. So if we can be able to harmonize these approaches, we can be able to get better results. So thank you, Dr. Aikawa, for taking that approach to the rest of the world when it was born in Kenya. We feel proud of it. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Kate Mbiru, I can see your hand up also. You have a question? Kate? Okay, if Kate is not ready, I can see Patrick also. Patrick Tonayane, you're good to go with your question?
Yes, asante sana.
Okay,
my question is to Dr. Jiro. I have been to Kenya. It's a very good place, lots of rainfall every day. And Doc, you have been into South Africa where the conditions are not really the same as in Kenya. Under what ideal condition would you say SHEP must be born? Thank you very much, asante sana.
Okay. Dr. Jiro?
Yeah.
Patrick?
Okay, yeah, thank you very much for your nice comment. Yeah, if we can say which the place is the best for developing the approach, I can clearly answer Kenya was the best place for developing the SHEP approach. But as you see, SHEP approach is the approach to empower the farmers. So not selective approach. So now we have already developed this SHEP approach. So I believe no farmers, we don't have any farmers who doesn't need to conduct market survey. So I think every farmer, they have to sow the seed after confirmation of where to sell. So in terms of the expansion, we don't need to select any places. So every farmer have to learn about SHEP approach, I think. Yeah, but in terms of the developing the approach, Kenya is the best place. Yeah, this is my answer. Thank you very much.
Okay, another question? Anybody else want to answer a question? From the chat box, I can see Yenenish asking, I think Francisca, how gender mainstreaming was conducted under SHAPE, and two, based on the baseline, what was the percentage increase in productivity from involvement of private sector actors? Francisca?
Okay, we can start with the gender mainstreaming. Mostly we emphasize on roles and responsibilities. Then control and accessibility of assets in the family. But it's important to note that we let the couple decide. We do not tell them this is what you must do, because when gender mainstreaming was brought in the 80s, it was a bit too rough, especially on the men. So it's just a matter of making the couples or the household understand that each of them should do something to make everybody productive. So it is difficult to answer that. Yeah, but what we know is, what we say is that we just let them know the advantages of working together as a couple and not letting one have too much. Then same with the finances. Sometimes they hide the finances from each other, and they really suffer from that. I don't know whether I can answer that.
That's
And
okay.
the other one is on the private sector, we did not really measure, but one can tell, because if somebody was not selling the Inandarua, for example, where we know tomatoes have had issues with the marketing, and here they have a year-round market, a known market with a known price, where they are making, they know they are making the profit they want, because the issue of profitability depends on each person. So we could see the change in terms of how the farmers have continued now to do the same crop, increasing the amount of the crop, and generally they were happy. And when we did the baseline survey, we would see what they were earning, and thereafter they were earning much more. And it cannot be said it's just because of one factor, but each of those many factors they're able to contribute. For example, they can grow a lot of, even if the private sector is there, but they grow the wrong variety or they grow the wrong time, the private sector will not really help. So to me, it is the whole SHAPE approach combined. That's what will bring the profit.
Okay, thank you. I can see James Amol Ajak, your hand is up. James?
Are you getting me?
Yes, we can get you, James. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is James from South Sudan. My question goes to Jiro. The SHAME approach, or the smallholder horticulture empowerment and promotion. So I've been working on the project of involving youth, especially the youth that work or benefit from the agricultural extension services in the process of peace building and conflict resolution. And I found that the SHAPE approach in South Sudan didn't only deal only with the small horticulture farmers that in the major cities. And then as all we know that the agriculture is based on the rural areas surrounding the country. So my question is, how is it possible if we could include the livestock production sector in the process of SHIM, and also engaging the extension agents that are trained by the SHIM project in the process of peace building and conflict resolution in a country like South Sudan, and where like private sector is important, the NGO sector also are important in the peace process. Thank you very much.
Okay, Jiro?
Yeah, okay, thank you very much for your nice comment. Yeah, I think you have two questions. One is livestock and one is peace, the building, right? Yeah, as for as for the introduction of SHEP approach to the livestock, we are now trying to these things in Palestine. And Palestine farmers now they conduct market survey, not to the market per se. They visit the somewhere. Not only the auction prices, but shops and the many places, as well as the some successful livestock farmers. Then they interviewed to the successful farmers, livestock farmers, and they say during the interview, the successful farmer are asked when you change your farming. Farming is having a livestock way. Then what trigger which the let you change your way. Then those the farmers, they answered their history. Yeah, that is one of the awareness part. Yeah, so after that, the farmers in Palestine, they are now changing their way to having a livestock. So extension staff, before extension staff, they tried to teach farmers appropriate the livestock management, but farmers don't follow, didn't follow. But once they heard that from some successful farmers, yeah, they are aware of the point which they have to change. At the same time, as I said, they visit the market, and at the market they open their eye. Yeah, and now we are trying to introduce SHEP in livestock in Namibia this year. Yeah, and we are going to modify this way in Namibia, and after sometimes we are going to present the experience of livestock in SHEP or SHEP. So maybe you can find something. And we have a website and also the Facebook page. So maybe you can come to reach to our Facebook page. Maybe you can check it. And the second question, JICA has implemented the technical cooperation project in North Uganda. And that place spent a very long time for conflict, and now is a stage for the rehabilitation. And many villagers, they are very, how can I say, they were very nervous. So if we bring just only the SHEP approach, maybe conflict will happen again. So we are now combining SHEP approach and the another approach, quality of life. So our JICA expert working together with Uganda counterpart visit the farmers one by one and have a long interview to understand their situation. So the volume of the activity is very heavy compared to the normal SHEP approach. But hearing the process that the intervention is very important, which we learned by JICA. So in South Sudan, since year 2013, we received some agriculture officers from South Sudan to Kenya, and they understand SHEP approach. But we have to create another opportunity to visit the North Uganda. Then maybe they can understand more about how to manage or how to combine SHEP approach and the activity for the quality of life. This is my answer. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, all. I think we can stop there for the questions and proceed on in line with our timetable. And before we invite our panelists to come and respond to some specific questions to further shed more light on the role of youth and the double benefit of engaging youth and private sector in extension, we can take our second poll quickly as we prepare to invite our panelists back to the stage. The poll, please. So let's take a minute or so and go through that. We're good to go. Thank you very much. I think that is enough time. We can proceed on. We're now going to invite our panelists again to respond to, as I mentioned, some specific questions which had been shared with them before. So we'll ask them to try and do so within 4 or so minutes so that we are able to manage our time well to the end of the session. So our first speaker or respondent will be Francisca once again. And we'll ask Francisca to specifically respond to the question which I'm just putting on the screen now. And that is the question. We shall ask Francisca to respond to that question. And you take 4 minutes to give us your opinion on opportunities and challenges. What opportunities and challenges do innovative extension approaches such as SHEP present for youth and the private sector actors in extension? Francisca.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.
Go ahead.
Okay, there's the youth. Sometimes they can use the approach. First of all, apart from using it for themselves, they can also use it to make. They can actually make money. They can be private. They just do they apply it in their farm. And then the private sector, they can carry the messages for us or for themselves, because once they train the farmers, then they'll be able, the farmers will in turn buy the produce from them, or they'll sell to them, or the chemicals or the inputs. So there's that opportunity. There's challenges, there's pressure. I've lost the question. Was there challenges in the question?
Yes, challenges and opportunities.
Yeah, okay. So for the challenges which I see mostly is for the youth is normally the competing competing enterprises, especially in Kenya. In some counties we find there's not, or some counties we find there's not a single youth involved in agriculture. So that to me has been the most challenge. You train today, you think they are going to be role models, but tomorrow you find that they are not there. So the mobility of the youth is also it's a big challenge, whatever the extension methodology we are using. For the private sector, what I said was that after working with some individuals in the private sector, I find maybe when a change is done, that kind of cooperation is lower. But there's an opportunity if maybe the institution itself, like I can quote one bank where it was more of the institutional business liaising with us instead of the individual stakeholder in the county. So we used to communicate with the headquarters here in Nairobi, tell them our activities, then they would actually mobilize the people in the field, their staff in the field. So there's also that opportunity with working with the headquarters. Otherwise, sometimes we have the challenge of individual private sector people.
Okay, done?
Yeah.
Thank you. So Jiro, what are the unique benefits of integrating youth and private sector actors in SHAPE and other extension approaches? The broader view, SHAPE and other extension approaches. What are the benefits of integrating youth and the private sector actors?
Yeah, okay, thank you very much for your lead. Okay, I can say normally youth farmers are very aggressive and can be the catalyst in the community. So if we'd like to expand some knowledge within community rapidly, the youth is the best people to expand within the community. Yeah, so we can observe the many cases in Africa. The youth farmer are very, how can I say, become a leader of the community once they learn about the SHAPE approach. And part point, the more attractive to youth farmers about the SHAPE approach is they said that explore or discover new things is very exciting for them. Yeah. So once they enjoy this kind of discovering or exploring, they cannot keep a secret of this enjoyment. So they become a catalyst and they expand their knowledge. And also relationship with the private sector. The old man like me, normally we are conservative. We don't want to purchase new things. But sometimes the farmers, youth farmers are very, very aggressive and they don't hesitate to try new things. Then they, how can I say, they open up their way. And after that, maybe the other ordinary farmers, the middle age or the old guys, they can follow. So this type of combination is very unique and very effective for expansion of some knowledge in the community. This is my answer. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Ori, what are the essential features of an extension approach that sustainably and effectively engage youth and private sector in extension advisory services?
Hey, you've given me a new question. Okay. Well, I think the approach is certainly to embed aspects of youth inclusion, just as gender has become a larger issue in development, to incorporate aspects, to mainstream gender into development projects. The same could go for youth. We understand that in Africa the youth are the largest population, and I know that this is more of a global event, but population trends are moving that way. So an approach that is very much inclusive of youth, whether that be young ones, to be able to learn about agriculture and understand that it can be a profitable business, so that you instill entrepreneurial skills in them before they reach adulthood, or in the older youth in academia, to be able to learn about innovative techniques, not just about farmer field schools, but other extension techniques, to be able to go out and practice their profession well. Those are some key aspects. But there's this question itself could become a roundtable discussion, because you think about access to land and access to markets, and you really have to build your reputation, especially in accessing the market and in marketing your product. So extension in general, or governments really need to think about how can we create an inclusive environment for youth, not only to access land, to access credit, and be able to market their products. So they're often starting themselves out at a disadvantage. So there needs to be a lot further discussion about how we can engage youth in an extension approach to be inclusive of them, because the past models certainly have not been. So we need to take a look into those aspects and move forward with that. Thank you.
Now, finally, looking from a policy perspective, we can get a comment from Professor Mwangi, who is a lecturer and a policy expert in Kenya, on what policy measures are required to ensure successful scaling up and institutionalization of innovative extension approaches in Africa. Professor Maina.
Thank you, George, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to just comment on the policy measures that are needed to ensure successful scaling up and institutionalization. And I will base my comments deriving from the presentations that we have had up to today from the last 4 webinars. And the theme for these webinars has been engaging youth and private sector in extension services. I therefore do consider that we need to look at policy measures targeting these different categories, that is the youth and the private sector. One of the areas that has emerged is that traditionally extension has been the preserve of government. And therefore, in many countries, or even in some sectors, there will be need for measures to recognize these and open up extension service provision to allow other actors to create roles for private sector and other actors. And in this way, there is need for policy to recognize the limitations of government and create roles for a large diversity of actors. And really, progressively, policies need to create the space for government be more in facilitating and supporting the others. One of the measure is flexibility in terms of policy, to allow different models depending on context. An area of policy measure is in enabling public or engagements between different types of actors that can be public, private, can be public, public, or private, private. We have seen examples, for example, in Rwanda, where students are taking internships in a public facility or even in private companies, and these will contribute to the success of extension service delivery. Of course, the policy measures need to very well understand the needs of private sector and ensure they are included. And while doing this, it is important that policies trigger and promote farmer-led extension, as we have heard from the case of SHEP, that really it be as much as possible be demand driven. Now, for extension to succeed, policy needs to ensure various types of support are availed. And this, in my opinion, and from what we have gained in the recent discussions, will fall in different categories. One is there is need for financial support to enable initiatives in support of extension service delivery. However, one of the presentations made it very clear that funding is not predictive of performance. What is needed is policy to ensure that funding is focused on agriculture sector needs. And because in this case, we are considering youth and their roles in extension, we need also to provide funding that is more easily accessible to youth so that they can then be able to participate effectively in supporting extension. So because we are talking about innovative approaches in extension service delivery, there is also need for policy to enable access to funding to support innovations. For example, digital platforms, digital approaches, tools, resources that will spur and support extension services. The other area of need is in terms of training and skill support, and in particular, youth need to be supported to acquire the skills. A lot of them may come with knowledge, but they require skilling and support to be able to enter into this area where they can then contribute to extension service delivery. An emerging area has been referred to as development of para-professionals. And examples were given, for example, the Apiary Association in Uganda, which is providing an informal training and certification for those in the honey industry. In Kenya, we got an example of the Academy of Dairy Managers who get some type of informal certification. And the mechanisms for recognition of this is needed. Another example has been given in Uganda, where village agents are working with established, private sector companies, but they need training so that they can, in addition to what they are doing, to more effectively, support and fulfill another role as in extension service delivery. Of course, there is need for support for startups, and particularly youth entering extension and advisory services. An example is how can ICT centers be set up and managed to effectively support them? One area in regard to providing training and skill support is to link. Policy needs to link, to training where there are existing training departments or institutions. These might be in TVETs or universities or other types of institutions. So the loop is closed well. So depending on what training is needed, the skills that are needed, and who is training it. And of course, training, a very important area is, can policy look into these issues so that after training, those are given linkage to other service providers? And an example raised is, I think even in the case of SHEP, where after training, those who have received this training might need access to financial services in order to be able to apply what they have learned. One of the key needs to enable innovations in extension service delivery is access to technologies, and particularly in ICT. Policy needs to look into the area of infrastructure, access, the costs associated with ICT. In many areas, internet may not be available, capacity is an issue, and cost is an issue. And we got an example of a policy intervention. For example, in Rwanda, there is reduced airtime costs for rural-based businesses. Policy needs to address barriers in technology access, and in some areas, these are because of lack of technical expertise. So the other area is beyond training for extension, there is also need to enable access to a broader array and range of simple technologies, tools, and equipment. There is also need to look into the legal aspects that can influence how extension performs. One area that was highlighted is to target fiscal policy environment to ensure it is more favorable to businesses that are in agriculture. Another area is to ease establishing of new businesses. And we have seen an example, some countries, it gets to be really difficult for young people who want to enter into this space or set up businesses that can contribute to extension service delivery. They may not find it as easy. There could be, for example, consideration of tax incentives or other measures, among other examples. One of the other areas for policy consideration is with regard to the regulatory environment. There are many actors, many organizations, individuals, firms that have roles or businesses activities in extension and advisory services delivery. Of course, some of the services are highly regulated. Policy needs to look into how to enable entry and participation even within regulated disciplines. A case in example is Kenya, where one of the cases presented is the Kenya Veterinary Board is working with a private company, and they have been able to set up this initiative where the service is regulated from one side, but the private sector actor is also able to participate in this area. Therefore, policy needs to see how to address barriers to entry that might lock out some actors from these types of businesses or sectors where only established companies can enter. The other area is with regard to standards and certification of the firms and individuals, different types of services that are being brought to the market. Currently, as it is, there does not seem to be any formal mechanism for standardizing and certifying the activities and the types of services and products. There is need for policy to look into how to professionalize this area of extension service delivery, because farmers need access to professional services. One of the key points that has been raised is in extension service delivery, content matters. And this is an area that needs to be looked at. The issue of supply chain integrity, issues in supply chain integrity, for example, quality control, standards of various products can be a weak point in extension service delivery and a good area for policy to have a look at. Another area raised is there are different types of different approaches being used in extension service delivery, and policy can look into ways of harmonizing this. And one area that has been highlighted is, can there be a mechanism for registration to improve coordination of actors, the service providers in extension and advisory service provision? And finally, there is also a couple of issues that require policy attention that do not seem to fall into the others that I have mentioned. And one key area, as we have understood from one of the presentations, is that the extension model or approach used is usually not the problem. It may be, but it is usually not. And the lesson is that the problem is usually in the implementation, in follow-up and monitoring. Now, arising from that, it is important that policy be able to provide for a mechanism for evaluation, monitoring, and to ensure that the feedback received is utilized. In other words, policy should create space for impact assessment, identify who is to do this, who will do it, when, the resources, and how the findings of these kinds of assessments are used to improve on these policies. Just my last 2 points, there are issues of informality in value chains that have introduced risks. They are associated with part of the risks associated with agriculture sector. And a good case was presented that where the market, the linkages between different actors is better structured, risks are less. Policy can look at ways of improving these structural, better relationships within the market actors to reduce the risk, or more increase formality and reduce informality. This is an area that needs to be looked at. And finally, because youth are key in success, implementation of successful and innovative extension service delivery model, policy needs to pay attention to the needs of youth. It needs to understand that there is great heterogeneity in youth. Ideally, should segment the youth and tailor interventions based on their context, and pay attention to a large number of youth who are in rural areas, and many may not have advanced education or other types of qualifications. I want to thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Maina, for that detailed summary. I'm sure the participants will be looking forward to receiving that, to be able to look at it in a little bit more detail and internalize. But due to time, I think we will not be able to discuss further on that, but I'm sure we will continue to engage online in various ways so that we can get clarity and details of that summary. At this opportunity, this juncture, I want to invite Mr. Wycliffe Amariat from Ministry of Agriculture, Kenya, to make some closing remarks of this webinar as we approach the tail end of this session. Mr. Amariat. Wycliffe? I don't see, I think he's not active, but I can see him online. Wycliffe? Okay, if Wycliffe is not able to make those closing remarks, then I'll invite Henry Kinyua from DLEC, Feed the Future program, to come and make some closing remarks and to make some appreciation remarks also to the participants and the panelists. Henry Kinyua.
Hello, everyone. I think my name is Henry Kinyua. I'm the head of East Africa for Digital Green, and therefore the lead for DLEC project in this region. I want to take this opportunity to thank you all for attending those 4 webinars. For those who were not with us last week, I explained that as part of the communities of practice, we were supposed to have this 2-day event in April, and then COVID happened. And then we thought through what the best way to ensure that we're able to reach out to people and share what we had. And that's we came up with the idea of break down the 2 days into like 4 webinars. And it's been an exciting experience, engaging with you, and most importantly, getting your feedback, your contribution, and we can't thank you enough. We have learned enough, we have learned a lot from you, and we hope you've also gained a lot from these kind of interactions. Going forward, as it has been stated, you will receive these presentations, you receive the recording of the presentation, and also if you can also share with a full report on each and every that we put together the presentation as minor put that summary, so that if you missed any, we'll be able to ensure you are able to get all the deliberations, what was the objective of each webinar, what was discussed, who were actually the presenters, so that if there's an issue you like to follow up, you can actually do follow up with them. So I want to stop it there and say again, thank you very much for partnering with us, and we look forward for this kind of engagement. If there are any questions that have not been answered, kindly feel free to send. We can follow through with each of the presenters, and also as the organizers, we can answer if there's any specific question that you felt that was not answered and could have been addressed maybe differently. Thank you very much, and have a good evening, good morning, whatever you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. I'm told Amoriat is with us. Wycliffe? Amoriat? I think Amoriat is having technical challenges. Maybe we'll end it there because I think he's unable to make his remarks. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a blessed afternoon, evening, or night. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Asante sana.
Kwaheri.
Right, thank you very much.
How are you, Francisca?
I'm fine, madam. Long time.
Mnaendelea vizuri?
Naendelea vizuri.
Sasa si ni kulima tu.
The better. Show the way.
Nice to see you and to hear from you.
So,
And that you are going on well with the shape.
Yeah, now we are shaped.
Yeah,
and we will do even better.
Yes. That is good.
Right.
Bye.
Please invite me next.